Yeah, looking good. You've been working out.
Whereas I was just telling Eric before we started, I have not. My gym is closed and they don't have any equipment out in the parking lot. But in any case, joining me now are Eric Fleishman, aka known as Eric the Trainer, and Michael Kroeger, best known from Nickleback. And they have a project together called Maine Monster, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Eric, I wanted to start off with you. I wanted to know how you came to be so well known as the Hollywood physique expert, and some of your clients that were kind enough along the way to be like, oh yeah, Eric the Trainer, that's my guy. Like how many of those happened early on that really helped sort of, build the brand, as you would say?
Well, I have to tell you that the secret to my success, like fine wine, is years. I have been a trainer for almost 30 years.
Okay.
5 of those years were in Manhattan, in New York City. And then 25 years I've been out here in Los Angeles training actors, producers, rock stars, celebrity chefs. And so it's a matter of time. If you're enthusiastic and you're great at what you do, people find out. Very much like Nickelback. I mean, those guys write songs and they stay in your head forever. And so if you're good at something and you do it for a while, people find out. And I've been very, very blessed to work with some terrific talent all over the world. And it's a lot of fun, man. I'm living my dream.
And Michael, as Eric mentioned, obviously you're a part of Nickelback, and I did do some research. I'm like, oh yeah, they've been around 15, 20 years. And I'm like, nope, 25 years.
Yeah.
So I just, it's crazy when you think about in some ways, in my mind, like Nickelback is like a newer band, but clearly it's not. It's just the way that I look at it. And I'm always apprehensive when I get my facts from Wikipedia, but I just always assumed that the name Nickelback was like a slang for like a nickel bag, talking about like marijuana. But is it true that you worked at Starbucks and you would say, here's your Nickelback?
That is indeed the truth. That is the fact of the matter. Yes.
I think that that's such a nicer, more wholesome answer than the one I had in my head.
You know, it's up for interpretation, whatever you want it to be. It's cool.
Yeah. So obviously, you are a part of this huge band, and obviously you have this project you're working on with Eric. So Michael, let me ask you how you got to know Eric and how you became involved in the project that is known as Maine Monster.
Well, it all goes back to the day when I met Eric on the set of Celebrity Sweat in Chicago, backstage at a tour date that we were on. He came to interview me, and I was kind of at a low point in my physicality. I was injured and probably having a few too many drinks, and not really living my best life. But when we finished the show, we did the show with Eric and with Billy Blanks, and we had a great time. And they asked me where I lived, and I said I lived in LA, and they said, well, that's where Eric's gym is in LA, so you should come and train with us. And I've been training there ever since, pretty much. And with Eric and all the other friends that we train with, just the greatest people, so nice, and everybody's just a really, really cool a group to be around, everybody supports everybody else and cheers for everybody else, and it's really a family that he's created there. It's a really tight-knit group, and there are all kinds of actors and musicians in there, and there was just one day when we were talking about music, and he said something about writing and recording his own music, and I said, oh, that sounds cool, and he said, yeah, and we got all these other musicians that could play on it. I said, yeah, there's lots of really good musicians in the gym that we train with and are friends with. And he said, I'm looking for you to play the bass though. And I said, oh, of course, everything he's asked me to do, I'll do it, because he would never do anything to hurt me. And everything Eric does, or everything Eric asks me to do is always makes me better.
And I want to talk more about, other musicians that are participating in the band. But Eric and I were talking before we started recording about how you have your gym in Hollywood, but unlike a lot of gyms in Los Angeles in particular, because I know like in Orange County and other places not too far from here, gyms are open, at least at partial capacity. But here in Los Angeles, still closed for indoors, but you're able to operate because you have a large outdoor section, right, Eric?
Yes. it's a godsend. You know, when we originally designed the gym, we never knew that the outdoor section, in fact, would be utilized so much during this COVID year. So, you know, it was an amenity. It was like an add-on. It was kind of cool to have an indoor outdoor facility, sort of an old school Muscle Beach feel. But now we actually live and die by that outside area. So it's great. You know, our dumbbells go up to 185, Christian. So if you want to come by and do some curls, you're welcome to, baby.
I think that if I had two clones of myself and we all tried to lift a 185-pound dumbbell at the same time, we would probably all fall over. But I might take you up on that because
That's
it's
fixable.
funny because you know, my gym is a big chain gym, and they're just like, no, we're not going to do anything outside. They don't have anything set up outdoors. You know, it's over by the Burbank airport. They're just like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, it's been a while, and you know, I think that during, you know, the pandemic, it's very easy for fitness to take a back seat because one, we're told or at least at various times, like, don't go outside unless you have to. And, you know, it's a lot harder to try and get anything done. And having that opportunity like you're talking about is great. And, you know, it's interesting because as you drive around, you'll see restaurants that you like didn't even know they had an outside section. And, you know, some of them are investing thousands of dollars to have like nice seats and put out like flat screen TVs and all of that. And I was also telling Eric that there's a gym that I drive by sometimes when I have to go into the studio that I work in Culver City. And it looks like every day they just drag all the equipment out in the parking lot. And I'm like, well, they can't leave it out overnight. So somebody's then got to take it all back in. So it is interesting, you know, to all of these different ways that people are finding to, one, survive from a financial standpoint, but just in terms of our health. And I wanted to give Eric a moment to talk about some of the things that you were doing. One thing that jumped out at me is, you know, some of your work with Quest Nutrition. You did this Need to Feed Mother's Day sing along, and I wanted to give you a minute to talk about that because that sounded interesting. And I think I read that it made more than $27,000.
Yes. What happened was my fiance, now wife, we just got married. We were at home watching the national news, and we saw these long lines at food banks across the country. These lines were like 6 or 7 hours long. Families, hardworking families, waiting in line for food. Now, many of these families never thought they would ever be in a position to need to ask for food, so they were kind of embarrassed to be there. And then, sure enough, when they got to the front of the line after waiting 6 or 7 hours, there was no food left. And so it was heartbreaking for us. We knew we needed to do something. And you know, it was one of those things where you see an injustice and you think to yourself, not on my watch. I'm going to try to do something about it. So I started the very next morning making some phone calls to some really cool musicians, including Nickleback, including Mike. And I asked them, I said, look, if I create a platform for us to do some charity work, would you step up and would you be willing to play with us? And the best thing that ever happened to me was Nickleback said yes. They accepted and they became the anchor act. So Nickleback headlined that Mother's Day Need to Feed. And in one day, we raised enough to buy 270,000 meals for needy families, just with the artists that we had access to in and around Hollywood. It was a blast. It was one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that feels good, I'm sure, during anything, but especially, you know, look, I saw the same things you did, and it wasn't just in one or two spots. You saw all over the country, like you said, it was hours and hours worth of lines of people waiting. So that's great to, instead of like, hey, you know what, somebody should do a fundraiser. Yeah. You guys actually did it. Now, Michael, was this a year that Nickelback were going to be a little bit less busy, or were there big plans for 2020 that had to be backburned?
Huge plans. We had a North American tour booked, over 50 dates. I would be out there now still. You know, so we were starting in the end of May, then we were going. You know, just it was a huge tour, one of the bigger ones we've ever done. It was all booked and lined up, and we it just looked like it was not going to be possible. Like it just wasn't going to happen. So we had to kind of give everybody their money back and, you know, figure it out another time.
The key that I heard there that I think is the nice thing to hear is that you gave people's money back, because we don't need to name names of any large tours. A lot of them are going out of their way to hold on to your money for another year or possibly even longer. And there's all these rules about like how you can get your money back in the space of like a half an hour, 30 days. I had the number 30 in my head, Eric. And then I said, imagine if you only had $30 minutes to get your refund for your concert tickets, so you hear about some of that stuff. And it was great to hear though, that Nickelback is one of those bands that would give you your money back, so it's always worth giving credit to the bands that said that it's just not going to happen, because you bought the tickets before, you'll buy them again. And so obviously, Michael, you have those kind of plans that get squashed, unfortunately. So something like this comes along that must be nice. Somebody, obviously, Eric, so the idea of hanging out and doing this must have been very welcome at the time that it came up, right?
For sure. Yeah, it's really it's been a welcome thing to have another focus, something else that I can do to just keep myself busy, because Nickelback, the other unfortunate thing is the rest of the guys all live in Canada, so I can't even really get together with them, personally, because the border's closed. So if I go up there, I have to quarantine for a minimum of 14 days under penalty of death. Holy crap! They're not kidding around with the laws on that. It's like $75,000 fine and maybe even jail time if they catch you not properly quarantining. It's pretty intense. So I'll be waiting around down here in LA until they give the all clear, and then we'll get back together and work in person. But we nowadays it's easy to do remote things, recording remotely and all that stuff. So we'll do what we can that way too.
Yeah, when it comes to that sort of very strict quarantine, it is interesting because one of the places that seems to have been really most strict about it is Hawaii. And you always think about Hawaii as so laid back, but it's like, you'll read stories throughout the past few months that somebody who got there, posted like on Instagram that they're at the beach and then they get fined like a few $1,000s. And I don't think they give you jail time. I don't know if Hawaii went that far, but
I think they just take you to the airport.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Send you back,
Yeah, but
Hawaii is very much a microcosm. I lived there for 12 years before I moved to Los Angeles, and they have to be much more careful with the biodiversity in Hawaii than we do. They can literally lock the door on the state and control. Like they still don't have rabies there.
Wow.
They don't have snakes there. They're really, really careful about what they let happen or come to those shores, and as they have to be. It's kind of its own little world, right? So they have to be really careful because an outbreak is so easy there, so easy.
Yeah, no. I mean, I didn't even realize that about snakes or rabies. So that makes sense. That it makes a lot more sense that a bunch of mainland tourists coming over and coughing on everything. That I can see why they would be concerned. All right, so Eric, let's talk about putting together the main band that is Maine Monster. We'll talk about some of the other musicians, but for the song that I've heard, which I think is a great song, very catchy, called "I'm Yours," talk about obviously you're there, Michael's there. Who else is a part of Maine Monster?
I worked with a producer who's known as Wolves. He's a fantastic guy. He's got a studio in Hollywood, and he really left it open for me to bring in any of my friends to play on it. So Mike is playing bass, which is why the song sounds so cool. I wrote the song and I'm singing in it. My son, believe it or not, my son sings the background vocals. He and I have a great relationship and we play music together, sort of as a father-son. It's one of the ways that we connect besides working out. And when he sings, he kind of sounds like me, which is cool. So he sang the background vocals with me. And then a guy named Aviv, who played drums in Air Supply for years and years, played the drums. Now he's used to playing like, I'm all out of love, I'm so lost. So to get a chance to play with someone like Mike from Nickelback and a rock song, like he jumped at the opportunity. And then a German guitar player named Jörg, who formerly was in a band called Lifehouse. They had a huge hit with Hanging by a Moment.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he played guitar, and I love the way it came out. The funny thing is, when you're a novice musician like I am, because I'm a fitness guy that plays music because I love it. I'm not like a full-fledged musician. So when a guy like me plays music surrounding himself with great pro players, it's like playing basketball with NBA players. It just makes you look good, and it's so fun. And I genuinely have a great relationship with each of these guys, and I respect and love them. So we had a great time, and it was a very organic process.
And sort of tying into the charitable efforts we mentioned earlier, the proceeds from this single "I'm Yours" will go towards Feeding America. So, what's the best way for people to find out about the band and to get the song? Is it your personal website? I meant to try to find one for the band, but I didn't see that in my notes. So do they just go to your personal Eric the Trainer website, or where do they find that?
No, the easiest way to find Maine Monster, which is a brand new band, is because I'm from Maine. So people, when I go back home to the state, I'm gigantic in Maine. People in Maine are pretty small. So when I walk back there, I feel like Paul Bunyan. The best way to find it is Apple Music or Spotify, any of the streaming platforms. If you type in Maine Monster, the name of the song is "I'm Yours." 100% of the proceeds goes to charity. We're really proud of it, and we hope people like it.
Yeah, look, I think that 100% of the proceeds is what you like to hear every once in a while. Look, every little bit helps, but sometimes when you hear somebody's doing like 20%, you're like, okay, but what about the rest? So I like to hear that it's all of it. Now, I don't, obviously you're a fitness guy, so I'm sure you eat well, but as somebody from Maine, and I don't know if you partake personally at the moment, but have you ever found a lobster roll on the West Coast that compares to one in Maine?
I definitely have. There's a lobster roll that I had that was so delicious and so amazing. It was from a company called Cousins Maine Lobster. And it turns out that those cousins are from Maine. And the lobster is flown in from Maine all the time because they knew that I was from Maine. So they gave it to me and I tried it. And I said, this is amazing. This lobster tastes familiar. And they're like, we're all from Maine. There aren't a lot of us. Listen, when you live in Hollywood like I do, there are not a lot of Mainers out here. It's kind of like me, Anna Kendrick, Stephen King, Judd Nelson. There's not a lot of us out here, so it's kind of cool to see other Mainers.
There's not a lot of states where, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole state has the same area code. You know what I mean? They didn't need to divide it up.
That's right. That's right. And actually, to add on to that, not only does the state have one area code, but every time I leave the state, the Jewish population goes down 100%.
So, and that's just very selfish. Just one, because I grew up in New York, so it's lobster roll was always something that I would have to be, deep in New England to get. And probably the best one I ever had was when I went to Maine for a wedding. So, I'm going to file that away and I'll let you know once I've had one of those cousins ones. But, in terms of, other musicians that are involved in future recordings that are going to come out, which we'll talk about in a moment, they're two great voices, John Oates, who I have, had the opportunity to interview. He's always a great guy, just very funny, very down to earth. And Arnel Pineda, who I think most people at this point know, sort of like what I was talking about, Nickelback being a new band. He's the new singer of Journey, but he's been around for like almost 20 years at this point. And I saw them about 2 years ago. They did a co-headline tour with Def Leppard. And all the Journey songs are great. But then just watching this guy run around the stage, you're just like, and like to have that kind of energy and be able to hit those Steve Perry notes. I don't know how anybody does it. So talk about working with those guys and, about the songs that we'll be able to hear down the road from them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because our second single comes out in about a month and it's called Girl Like You. And actually Arnel from Journey sings with me on the chorus. It is a huge chorus. It's that sort of big Journey sound that you love so much, but it's got a sort of a modern rock take on it. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear it. Working with Arnel was a blast. I was actually on that tour training Def Leppard, and I got to know the guys in Journey and started training some of those guys on tour also. That was a great tour. The Journey Def Leppard tour was a blast. I loved being the trainer on that tour. And I'm so excited for everyone to hear the song that we're releasing in about a month with Arnel. And then the John Oates song, we haven't even recorded yet, but he's already said to me, I'm in, baby. I love John Oates. He's one of my favorites. And he and I get along so well. He's an incredible musician. And I'm just excited to collaborate with my favorite musicians in the world. I'm literally living my dreams.
John Oates is obviously a great musician. Seems like a nice guy, but he's also got, because of where he spends a lot of his time. I don't know about still, but he lived in Colorado. He was like neighbors with Hunter S. Thompson. So the thing that you don't expect is for John Oates to have amazing Hunter S. Thompson stories, which he does. Wow. So, yeah. Cool. So so Michael, now actually working on these things, Eric was kind of alluding to it. Is it home studio, or were you guys able to get together and perform? Were you able to work with people you'd never actually had the chance to work with before, or was it all by yourself? Maybe even in the room you're in right now.
Yeah, our guy, Wolves there, he has a studio. It's just down the street from my house. And, yeah, I just throw the mask on and take a couple pieces of gear over there and just throw it down. And Eric would be there for quality control, make sure I did it right. And if there's anything I did that was needed to be changed, he could say right then. And yeah, it was really, really great, really easy too. He's, when you're working with people that are pros, is very easy to do. It's not difficult at all. It was just fun. I just started playing, on each song. When I would go in to play the song, we'd just start playing, and I would play for a while, and then in the end, they'd just be like, okay, we got it, and be like, oh, really? I gotta go now? Because I was just having fun, and it was more about the conversation even between the takes, really. It was just a blast.
Well, yeah, because you're talking about actually going into the studio, but even at this point, here we are at the beginning of October. We're about 7 months into obviously staying at home as much as possible. So actually having a reason to go out, and not just I want to take a drive, I want to take a walk. It's like, oh, I actually have like something to do, and so just like, wait, no, I don't need to go back to my house. I've seen enough of my house, and obviously for somebody who's usually out on tour, probably at first you're like, oh, this is great, I'm home. But it probably didn't last that long where you're just like, oh, it would probably be nice to play a show or two for,
it's kind of gone full circle. In the beginning, I was like, oh, wow, it's so nice to be home. And then, yeah, I got to that point that you're talking about. I've never been home this long, like ever. Since I left my mom's house, I've never been home this much, and in 1 year. And then now I've come back around, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I'm getting to see my wife and my kids and my dogs, and like it's really special. It's a special time. My kids are older, so they're getting ready to fly the coop anyway. So this is sort of like last chance, to complain about them not putting their dishes away and stuff.
Yeah. This is like they're literally starting to flap their wings and leave the coop, as you're saying, but then you pull them down like, nope, got to stay.
Well, yeah. Thank goodness they're not quite ready to go.
My son is 5 and my daughter's 2, and we're fortunate that they have preschools that have opened in a very socially distant way, really spaced out. But that first day back, they haven't ever run away from me faster.
Yeah. They were
like, oh my God, finally I don't have to be with him anymore. Like, oh my God, my friends. Yes, I remember what this is.
I like. Yes.
Yeah. Like, look, a slide that I can actually go down. Oh my God.
That's great. Good.
Yeah. So it is interesting because, when you do go into a place to work, like, I don't know. I mean, for me, I was talking to Eric beforehand, just working in radio/podcasting. The first time I went into a studio, it was like very nerve wracking. And all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, but it's not that different. It's like everybody's far enough away. You already have people behind the glass, and I'm sure recording studios that way too. So it's like, it's already a fairly distant setup, that kind of a studio. So once your heart stops racing, you're like, oh, it is kind of nice to get out of the house as long as you're able to be safe about it. So what are the long-term plans for Maine Monster? You're talking about a few songs coming out in the near future, Eric. Will it come out as an album or just a couple of songs and see where it goes? What's the big picture plan?
I think what's going to happen is we're going to release a series of singles initially, featuring musicians that I admire and love, great collaborations, and then a full album will follow for sure.
And I mean, you've already got Arnell, you've got John Oates. Is there like a little legal pad of other names that you haven't reached out to yet? Some like, oh, I know this person. I bet they'd be good for something.
Yeah, I go back into my old CD collection, which my son initially stole from me. I was like, where did all my CDs go? Actually, he put them in his room. And I sort of looked through all of the major influences that's been the soundtrack of my life. And I think to myself, wouldn't it be amazing to collaborate with them? And I just give them a call. Working in the fitness industry, I develop personal relationships with a lot of incredible artists. So I don't need to ask their manager or their agent. I just call them and I say, hey, I'm recording this song and I'd love for you to join me. And they haven't said no yet. So we're rocking.
Yeah, and I think having the personal relationship certainly goes a long way, because you don't have, any intermediaries involved who, for whatever reason might be like, no, 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 they're not interested in it. But then they never find out. I mean, when it, on a much smaller level, when it comes to trying to book guests for shows that I've worked on, it's like it's just like, if only they knew that
Yeah.
that my boss wanted to talk to them, they would.
They don't always know.
No, yeah,
We
exactly.
don't always know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it could be like years and be like, what do you mean I could have done that Maine Monster record with you? Why didn't you ask? And it's like, oh, I asked your people, So to have that, Eric, something you were talking about, I just wanted to before we wind up, I thought it was interesting. You talked about actually going out on that tour with Def Leppard, and obviously, look, those guys are great, and I'm sure Phil Collin probably didn't need any help keeping in shape, because like you'll hear him talk about his cheat day. He has like 4 tortilla chips, and I don't think that guy's worn a shirt since 1986, but obviously look, they're not getting any younger. So obviously it's important to them. Do you find that there's actually a big need for that, of just like, yeah, I could follow a regimen, but if somebody comes out on the road with me, I'm actually going to stick to it? Do you find that that's very frequently the case?
Yeah, my mission when I go on tour with a band, my mission is to control 3 things: their exercise, their diet, and their sleep, because it's a grueling life out on the road, as Mike will tell you. I mean, it's show after show. It's a very physical thing. If you're not eating the right food to fuel your body, if you're not sleeping well, you'll break down within a few days or weeks. And that's a disaster, because some of these tours are major events where it goes on, like he said, for 50 days. So it's always helpful to have someone like me on the road in a happy and friendly way to work out with you every day, to encourage you to eat healthy foods at craft services. And after the show's over, take a shower and go to sleep.
Yeah, I was mentioning to you before we started that I was sent a little compilation, like some YouTube clips of things you've done. And one of the things that you were really hitting on there is the importance of getting good sleep. Obviously, all of it's important, but just how important that is. And I mentioned I have 2 small kids, so getting enough sleep very rarely happens. But it's always like the night that I'm like, I'll stay up till midnight. That's when they wake up, like, at 4:30. So just take a quick moment about why it's so important, and just in general, what the positive impacts are in, say, getting just getting 1 extra hour of sleep for maybe somebody who tries to cram in too much at night. And I'm talking about myself.
Well, the greatest thing about sleep is that sleep is the only time the body can change. All physical transformation occurs exclusively during slumber. So even if you worked out with me, Eric the trainer here in Hollywood, even if we had Wolfgang Puck, the chef, make the food for you exactly in the nutritional way that you needed it, your body would not change and your mind would not be renewed without sleep. Sleep is to the body what an oven is to cookie dough. It's the place where all the transformation occurs. And so I can't tell you how important sleep is. In addition to that, the hours before midnight that you're actually asleep are worth almost twice as much as the hours after midnight. So the Christian that goes to bed at 10 o'clock and wakes up at 6 is better looking and stronger than the Christian that goes to bed at midnight and wakes up at 8. And I like that Christian.
Yeah, believe me, I like the one that goes to bed at 9 p.m. I like him even better. And unfortunately, the me that falls asleep at 9 p.m., it's usually me passed out on one couch, my wife passed out on the other, because we're like, oh, the Fargo started. Let's watch the season premiere of Fargo. And then 5 minutes in, we're both snoring. So that's usually how I fall asleep. But yeah, it's tough because, sometimes I have a lot of work for my day job to get done. And like last night I laid down, it was 1:30 and I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted, but that I couldn't fall asleep, because it was just, I'd sort of artificially kept myself awake for so long. And I didn't even have like coffee or anything. Just like my brain was like, no, we're up. What are you doing? This isn't the time to sleep. So anyway, well, I appreciate all that insight, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more from the band, from Maine Monster. And, so Eric, where do people find you in general? If they want to hear more about your fitness, or if they live here in LA and they want to actually find somewhere where they can exercise.
If the best way to contact me is on social media at Eric the Trainer, or they can go to ericthetrainer.com.
And Michael, are you a social media guy, or would you rather just be left alone when you're not out on tour?
I know I'm a social media. I play with Instagram a little bit, and I have an Instagram account. It's what is it? Michael _ Kroeger 555. And that's me on Instagram. But I don't take it very seriously. I'm not, like, I'm not doing like the walking up the steps of the rented private jet, pretending it's mine or whatever. That's not really. I'm not really much of a poser, so it's pretty real. I take pictures of myself at like the dentist's office and stuff.
Hey, and going to the dentist office these days, it's like a whole different approach than it was a year ago. It's almost like if either of you saw the HBO miniseries about Chernobyl, they had like these guys who could go run up to the roof and you could only be up there for 90 seconds. So it's like, you have these weird like face attachments to go to the dentist. And, my actual dentist did my teeth cleaning and not the hygienist. I'm like, what is all this? And it's like, they've got the welder's masks. So yeah, it's interesting. And what I like about Instagram is that it's just pictures. And I think that it's a much more laid back way to keep in touch with people. Twitter is it's very easy. Look, there's a lot of things to speak out on these days, and not that people don't do it on Instagram, but sometimes it's like, oh, look, this person has a dog. Oh my God, they went to the water park with their kids pre-pandemic.
Yeah. I find Instagram to be a much more positive place than Twitter.
Yeah, well,
I deleted Twitter a while back. It's just
yeah,
I would ruin my own day. I just can't do it anymore.
No, definitely. I was telling Eric before we started, I work for the comedian Dennis Miller, and I keep an eye on some of his social media, and it's not even about me. And you just read stuff and you're like, oh man, they were talking about my boss and it ruined my day.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about stuff about us that bothered me. It was just, I would read, anything, people's idea of, like a new Netflix series could be enough to end, my good day. It just seems to be such a repository of negativity that I just, if I read, I would never read the stuff that they say about us, like my band, because that's of course going to ruin my day. But the other things, it's just, it seems like everything is just, everybody wants to have their voice heard, which is, I guess, in some way good.
Yeah, well, I guess it's good that everybody's able to have their voice heard, but good for you that you don't need to listen to all of it. I think that's probably the right approach. Well, guys, I really appreciate getting the chance to chat with you, and looking forward to more music, and hopefully catching up maybe in person one day. Maybe will there ever be Maine Monster shows, you think, Eric? If everybody's around, you could actually perform.
Oh, I love that.
I would love it. I think we'd have a great time. And I can tell you that we have a real organic friendship between all of us as musicians. So I'm sure the music would come out pretty fun.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate both of your times. And I will hopefully get a chance to catch up with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Thanks
Mike. Very much, Christian.
All right. Thank you both.
All right. Thanks.
Take care.